Coming up, what were the top takeaways from the Nets Summer League action after the team's historic draft? I'll answer that after this.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And on today's show, I'm going to be recapping my top takeaways from Brooklyn Summer League action, diving into how the rookies fared and what fans have to look forward to this coming season. And we got a special guest for today's episode of Locked On Nets. It's CJ Holmes, Nets beat writer for the New York Daily News. And CJ and I are going to be giving our top 3 Summer League takeaways. Brooklyn wrapped up Summer League action in Las Vegas on Friday. And CJ, you got to take in all the action. We got to see the Nets' historic rookie draft class for the first time. Your top takeaway from what you saw in Las Vegas. Let the fans know.
Yeah, man, you really see the vision with Egor, right? You see his size, you see his length, you see the potential of what he can be. And unlike other 6'8" point guards that have been in and out this franchise in recent years, he's willing to shoot, right? He's willing to shoot. He's willing to get shots up. His handle remains a huge question mark. I think that there were a lot of times out in Summer League where he was getting too vertical. He was too vertical with his dribbles, and smaller defenders were getting under him and kind of harassing him in the open court. Of course, that's not. You want to make sure that your projected starting point guard is solid off the bounce, right? And that's obviously something that he's going to have to work on going forward. That and adding strength, because that's what a lot of it is. A lot of it is he's just simply not strong enough to keep these defenders off him. He's simply not strong enough to attack the rim with any kind of consistency. And the Nets know that, and above all, I think Egor knows that, right? He seems like a great kid. He seems like he's very self-aware. I know he talked to you out in Vegas. He was like talking about. He admitted, yeah, I gotta add some muscle, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you see the vision of what he can be. My question is, what the handle concerns like is at this point, is he profiling more as a wing, right? Like, do the Nets long-term see him as a wing or as a point guard, right? I mean, unless he can clean up that handle, maybe he is a wing, but who knows? Maybe that's the best place for him.
Yeah, with Egor, for me, it was just my takeaway was that I feel he's going to have a role at the next level. And I do see the vision also. Like, I see what the upside is, but one of my biggest concerns, at least for him just sticking in having a role at the next level, was the shooting, because I talked to a lot of draft analysts and just watching his tape, my opinion was like, if the jump shot if he's shooting 20% in the 20s like he did at BYU from 3, he's just not going to be a functional NBA player, because he doesn't have the handle, the explosiveness, the self-creation ability, all those other things. He doesn't have it to where he can, make up for having a bad jump shot. So with him shooting, 44% from 3 on high volume at the Summer League. Yeah, and I mean, he looked very confident, pulling up off the dribble, shooting off the catch. He hit clutch threes in 2 of his 3 games. So that, for me, lends confidence that he's going to have a role at the next level. Now, what is that role going to be? You smartly brought up the fact that it could be on the wing. I mean, based on what we saw at Summer League, he was a wing at Summer League. Like, he wasn't a point guard. He was not handling the ball in the pick and roll very much, was what he did best at BYU. He was off the ball. He took 27 shots, 23 of them were 3-pointers. He did not get in the paint really at all. He was a wing. So the 3-point shooting was the thing to write home about and the major strength there. But to me, I think that's a resounding positive, because it was one of the major concerns entering it. But yeah, I that role might ultimately be on the wing. I think it's way too early to tell. We've seen 3 Summer League appearances. But when you saw the way that he was playing in terms of being really primarily an off-ball player, not handling in the pick and roll much, did that kind of take you by surprise, what we saw him doing and how the Nets kind of had him playing out in Las Vegas?
I mean, to me, it wasn't too surprising just because he's the tallest of the ball handlers that they drafted. And obviously in a summer league lineup, they're going to want to get those guys all out on the court at the same time. Right. So I wasn't too surprised to see it. I was surprised that there wasn't enough minutes of him featured at the one. Right. Obviously you can start wherever you want on the court. Right. But like, I was surprised there weren't enough isolated sets of minutes where he was running the one. But when we did get that, as briefly as it was, he just didn't look too comfortable out there. So, that handle is obviously something he's going to have to work on.
Yeah, and it was interesting because that was obviously a huge question of how are all these guys going to fit together between Egor, Ben Saraf, Nolan Traore, 3 guys who were all seen as international point guards entering the draft. And, Egor really didn't function as a point guard really at all during these summer league games. And I asked him and I asked Steve Hetzel, the Nets summer league coach, about it. And Hetzel, I asked him if it was something that they were trying to get more looks of Egor on the wing and focusing on that, or whether it was just the way the game was unfolding. And Hetzel said the latter, where he just felt like Egor needs to add more strength and get more comfortable as a ball handler in order to operate and run pick and roll and be that high-level pick and roll playmaker, as we saw him do at BYU. Obviously, that was his main skill coming out of the draft. So he felt that, or he was indicating at least, that Egor could have been doing that more in these summer league games, but he didn't. He just really wasn't taking it upon himself to do it, or he wasn't comfortable doing it. And I think we saw him at stretches maybe try to do it a little bit, as you said, but that was a main concern, coming out of the draft, was the handle wasn't extremely tight. And that's tough when you're a guy who's 6'8". And as you pointed out earlier, you have a little bit more of like an upright posture while you're playing. So that dribble is a lot higher off the ground just with your posture and your height. And that's something that he told me when I asked him about, getting more comfortable against NBA level defenders and ball pressure. So you have that. You also have, he's not the quickest, like side to side athlete. He doesn't really have much shake. So when you put those two things together, it's going to be tough to handle the ball pressure of NBA level defenders. And I think we saw that a lot in college. And then we saw that a lot in Las Vegas in the spurts that he was trying to handle the ball like that. But based on what you've seen from what you watched on his college tape and the brief things of what you saw in Las Vegas, do you have a hope, or are you encouraged that he's going to be able to get to a level where he can handle the ball and kind of let those passing gifts, which are his main skill, shine, as he did at BYU, especially as a guy who's running a lot of those pick and roll sets?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he can get there. Like I said, at the top of the show, above all, Egor seems like a good kid with a good head on his shoulders, and he's self-aware. You got a lot of these guys going in the lottery year after year that, think they made it or think they're finished products. And, Egor, I'm so sorry. Not one time, have you gotten any sound bites like that? The invoke Cam Thomas, he's not like, oh, I've been dishing out assists. They've been making shots, like, what I'm saying? But yeah, he seems like he has a good head on his shoulder. How tuned in the Nets developmental staff is to these things. And like you said, Steve Hetzel, the franchise, they're obviously aware of his limitations, but I do think that he has the work ethic and the mindset to get there. It's going to take time, though.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what attracted the Nets to Egor, like they talked about it in the last Scout series. Nets fans, if you haven't watched it, go check out the Scout series on YouTube. Nets content team did an unbelievable job with that, giving fans access, unlike many other organizations or front offices give you during the draft process. But if you're ever going to do that for the Nets, this was the draft to, give fans a look at it, because maybe 5 first-round picks, no team's ever done that before. But they talked about Egor, and part of what attracted them to him was the ceiling and the upside. And I do think that upside is tied to his positional versatility. Like if you're going to really hit that upside, like, sure, I said he can have a role in the NBA if he's the good shooter and if, the shooting stays at the level that he showed at Summer League. And that's being, the wing, the guy who can be an off-ball catch and shoot floor spacer, also be a connective guy where he can run some pick and roll and, you can run zoom actions and stuff and get him going downhill that way. But for him to hit the upside, the ball handling really needs to, take another stride, and he really needs to have at least some self-creation ability where he can do some things with the ball in his hands, because then you have those off-ball capabilities, but you also have him able to take advantage of the main things that he did great at BYU, which is the pick and roll playmaking and the passing. A lot of people regarded him as the draft's top passer. So if he's going to be able to take advantage of that and really let those gifts shine, He needs to get stronger. The handle's got to get tighter. He needs to have a little bit more burst side to side. And if he can do that with the shooting, with him competing on defense the way we saw him do in Las Vegas, with the size, with the length, with that versatility, I think that all, has the makings of a good NBA player and a guy who can stick in the rotation for a long time. But ultimately, a lot of that's going to come down to how he develops and how the Nets development staff is able to work with him. And the Nets development staff, they're going to have their work cut out for them with not just Egor, but with some other players. So we're going to talk about that and what we saw from the rest of the rookie class after a quick break. But before that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Guys, when I started using Monarch Money, I realized all the different things that you can spend on. Monarch lets you keep track of it all in one place so you can make sure that you're meeting your financial goals. You have a lot of subscriptions, guys. You can track all of those. You can wave through the ones you want and don't want to make sure that you're not spending too much monthly. Having everything in one app made it so much easier to manage my money day to day. It really helped with meeting everything that I wanted to do. Guys, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with CJ Holmes, Nets beat reporter for the New York Daily News, giving our summer league takeaways. At the top, CJ and I talked about Egor Demin and Demin. Excuse me. I'm still trying to get that right. But we talked about Egor and why we're encouraged, why we see the vision with him, what he's going to need to improve on. But the Nets development staff's going to have their work cut out with Egor, not just with Egor, but with the Nets' other draft picks, which is obviously Nolan Traore, Ben Saraf, and Danny Wolf. So, CJ, let's start there. Of those three guys, when you saw what they had to do, who'd you come away with the most encouraged by in Las Vegas?
Yeah, Nolan, man. The dude is a blur. Yeah. Nolan is a blur. He can pretty much get to the rim whenever he wants. Unlike Egor, his handle looked tight. He looked explosive. That first step is dangerous, man. He did have some issues finishing around the rim, as most rookie guards do. But, that first step of his net speed, that makes him a game changer, man.
Yeah, and, Traore I thought was really encouraging. And all of these guys had different things that were encouraging about them. But, as I said, with Egor, the development staff's going to have their work cut out for them with Egor, but then with these other guys, because they have some gifts, and I think we should start with Traore and also Saraf too, in conjunction, because I thought the things that I saw from Saraf and Traore was just that they could get downhill, maybe not whenever they wanted to, but pretty damn close to it. Like they were getting past defenders, creating advantages, getting to the rim.
Mm-hmm. And they went about it in different ways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
While Nolan's a speed demon, Ben, he's methodical, he's under control, and it's crazy because he doesn't have the elite speed and elite athleticism that Nolan has, but he plays within himself, and it's almost impossible to speed him up. He's not gonna blow by you and finish at the rim stretching out. No, he's gonna lull you to sleep, right? He's gonna get a hip on you, right? He's gonna finish through contact,
Yeah, and I would say Traore does it with the speed. He has some shake too. Like we saw some nice jab steps. We saw some nice crossovers from Traore. But the main way that he was getting downhill was he was blowing by guys, or he was getting in the pick and roll. He was turning the corner on these big men. So he had that speed going downhill. Saraf, it was really, like you said, a little bit more methodical. I still think he's quick, but it was really, he has that nice crossover. He has that nice spin move. He was able to get downhill. Yeah, very crafty. Was able to create the advantages that way. So that's a major positive for both of them, because one of the top skills that you're looking for, obviously, in a lead ball handler is their ability to touch the paint consistently, collapse the defense, and create for others. And I think both of those guys have good passing ability. So you have a baseline skill there of being able to get downhill, create advantages for yourself and for your teammates. Now, I think from them getting downhill, as you said, they both struggled finishing at the rim. Like they both looked like they're guys who, Traore, because he's a little bit smaller, and Saraf isn't exactly the best athlete. So they're playing below the rim most of the time. So the rim finishing is going to be a work in progress. And the Nets development staff is going to have to work with them there. The more worrisome thing, I think, for both of them was the three-point shooting. And you look at both of them, the Nets are a team that said they want to attempt 40-plus threes per game. Egor was more than willing to let it fly every time he had any kind of opportunity. Traore and Saraf, that was not the case at all. I think combined, they were 1 for 11 from three. Like, they had 11 combined three-point attempts in 3 summer league appearances. That's not going to cut it for the way the Nets want to play. So was that something that stood out to you, really, when you were watching them play and the process that they were going through, with them being a little bit gun shy from 3-point range?
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, especially when you're considering, this is summer league, the pressure isn't as high. They know their roster spots are secure. And, you would think that they would be more keen to, jack them up, especially considering like that's what the team wants them to do. It's funny because it seems like shooting is going to be a swing skill for this entire draft class, right? From Egor to Danny Wolf. Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see in a summer league setting that they weren't more confident in taking those shots, because if there's any time to work on it, summer league.
Yeah, and you need to be able to make defenses pay. And I think that's something that we saw, just throughout the summer league games as teams got a little bit. I'm sure the scouting reports out on all these guys, but, players in the game get a little bit of a feel for it. And we saw it with Traore and Saraf. There were guys working under screens on them. There were guys just when they were handling the ball up top, giving them a couple feet of space and really giving them that cushion. In Traore's case, because he has such incredible speed, and you're going to need to be able to make those defenses pay by pulling up, by taking those threes, by making them at least try to respect you. And then in Saraf's case, particularly, he's a guy who, like Egor, could be a wing at the next level. Like, he's 6'6" barefoot, so probably plays like 6'7". He has a 6'8", 6'9" wingspan. He has the strength, I think, to be able to play on the wing. So he's a guy that off the ball, we saw him passing up some wide open looks. And that's something that Jordi Fernandez said flat out at the rookie
on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. He said, if your teammate creates a catch and shoot three for you and you pass it up, you're going to be riding pine next to me. So that's something that they're going to have to get out of their system real quick, because that is not going to be tolerated from this Nets coaching staff. And with Egor, the three-point shot was concerned, but he came in and looked comfortable right off the bat. The mechanics from the ground up looked smooth. He looked confident. With these other two guys, obviously it was less so, but Traore, I think, looked a little bit more fluid and confident. Yeah. Saraf is the one that I have the most concerns about with the jump shooting moving forward, because I don't really think he looked confident at all. I thought the ball looked a little strange coming out of his hand, and the motion, I'm just not sure looks as fluid as the other two guys. Was that something that you picked up on? And, where are you at in terms of the encouragement level that these guys are going to be able to get the three-point shot to come along?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't have any issues with Ben's shooting mechanics. Keeps the ball high, gets it off quickly. I personally didn't have any issues. Now, obviously, the volume of that needs to increase because he has good mechanics, if you ask me, but it just comes down to a willingness.
Yeah, and the Nets coaching staff, I think they have a couple shot doctors on their coaching staff, so they're going to have to, get in with those guys and really work with them and pull that confidence out of them. And I do think that there's probably going to be some, tweaking of how they go about the shot mechanics. But with that, I am encouraged by both those guys, and not just offensively. We just talked about Egor, Nolan, and Ben offensively, but defensively too. I thought that Egor competed really well in the defensive end. I think that was something we heard. Everybody was so shocked about this pick, a lot of people, and we asked Sean Marks about the motivation behind it. And one of the things he said on draft night was, we like the length. We like what Egor can do on defense, guarding pick and rolls and doing some other things. And I think we saw some of that come out in these summer league games because, you touched on Egor's personality, and something you're never going to have to worry about with him is his buy-in and his, being engaged and locked in and motivated. And that we definitely saw that in the defensive end of the floor. Nolan also, I thought was a guy.
He can get into some dudes now.
Yeah. Like he has that athleticism. He's a little bit slighter. He's going to have to add muscle, as all these guys are, but he's quick side to side. He's not small for a point guard by any means. He's like, probably with shoes on, probably 6'4", 6'8" wingspan. So good length there. and he competes. Like, he was pesky for sure. And I thought we saw some of that with Ben too. So overall, it sounds like you agree with me that you were encouraged by what they did defensively. And it's going to be big because there are guys that, especially in Egor and Ben's case, are going to have to potentially play some other positions.
And it's a shame that we didn't get to see Drake Powell in this environment, because he's projected to be the best defender of the five. And, it's just a shame that we didn't get to see how his game would have translated to a summer league environment. I guess we're going to have to wait till the preseason, huh?
Yeah, Drake, I mean, if we're talking about defensive capabilities, we should touch on Drake quickly because I haven't really talked about him, obviously, because he hasn't played. I talked about it after the draft a few times, but he's a guy, there hasn't been a ton of, high-flying, imposing athletes on this Nets roster since you've been covering the team, and even before that. It's something Nets fans have been complaining about for a while. He's a dude that, there's some concerns about what he can do with the ball in his hands offensively, if the shooting's going to hold up, but he is a force on the defensive end, and you're going to see some highlight plays if you get him out in the open court, if you get him, some oops, or you get him going downhill with, a lane. So he's going to be a really exciting guy. Before we take a break and go to the last segment, Danny Wolf, last guy we got to touch on, a really interesting player who I thought had some bright moments, had some extended struggles at Summer League. What did you think about what you saw from Wolf overall?
Yeah. I was talking to some folks at the University of Michigan. They said one thing that Danny has always struggled with is analysis paralysis. And what I mean by that is he's just someone who's, so intelligent, who can soak up so much information. Sometimes it can make him a little stagnant out there on the court because he's overthinking his every move, right? And you saw a little bit of that in Summer League, at least early on. I think by his third game, he settled down. I think that was a 16-point game where he went like 6 for 11 from the field or something like that. But, I mean, one could argue that Wolf has, among the highest upside in this year's class. I mean, not this year's class, but in the Nets draft class. He's basically a 7-footer who can handle like a point guard, who has solid shot mechanics. So you could see him expanding his range in the NBA. And, with that passing ability, right? He can be something that the Nets haven't really had in a while at the center position, and something different. A different look than a Nick Claxton or a Daron Sharp, right? When it comes to Wolf, man, it's all about him continue to be aggressive and playing with it himself, even when, a bunch of lights are going off up there. But, overall, was he as efficient as I thought he'd be? No. Obviously, he needs to clean up on the turnovers. That was a problem at Michigan, and it's been an issue. It was an issue in Summer League. But overall, man, the talent's there. And, I just really hope that the Nets can get the most out of him because he's definitely an intriguing talent.
Analysis paralysis. I like that. I haven't heard that, but that's actually it's interesting that guy said that, because I think we saw that at Summer League in his action and also in his words. Like, he struggled in the first couple of games. And after we, talked to him after the games, he was just talking about, he was really hard on himself. And he was like saying he thought he got sped up. He's
an overthinker.
Yeah, like he was, you could tell, like, he was obviously really cared about how he performed in these games or was going to perform. And then after he didn't, like, he was breaking down everything that went wrong, and he was, really upset with how he performed. I think we saw him settle in a little bit more in that last game. And he's been a tough guy for me to pin down because he's such an intriguing player, in terms of what he can do as a guy who's close to 7 feet tall, can handle the ball as he does. But I'm just not sure where he's going to fit into the equation positionally at the next level. Like, I think he has versatility to be able to do both, but then he also has limitations that can kind of put him into one box. Like, you look at defensively, he's not a rim protector. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to, if he has the foot speed to be able to guard wings and things along those lines. So where does he fit in defensively? But then you look at offensively, and he has that ball handling ability. And if the 3-point shot can come along, he could be, a short roll playmaking or pick and pop 5. And he also has the ball handling to be even like a huge jumbo sized wing who could do some of those things. So just seeing where he's going to fit in, I think, is an interesting question. And I think you even saw him in a Summer League setting that doesn't really benefit big men because it's so, it's not, there's a lack of structure there.
And he looked better without Timmy on the court, to be fair.
Definitely. Yeah. The last game he looked better with Timmy on the floor, but I think you just saw him. Yeah. When Timmy was on the court, I think you saw him kind of the gears turning in his head of like, how do I fit into this and where are my spots? Whereas at Michigan, it looked like a little bit more naturally. So I think that it's going to take a little bit of while. It's going to take a little while for the Nets to figure out where he fits in, and for he himself to figure out how does he use his gifts to his advantage at the NBA level against bigger, more sizable and athletic defenders. How do I kind of make this funky style work? But he has the baseline tools to be a really intriguing piece just due to the fact of his size, his ball handling, his passing, and the potential for shot making. And if we get into a setting where you have more high-level floor spacers around him and there's just more structure, I think that he's going to look a lot better. I don't think Summer League was the best place to kind of showcase his talent. So a really intriguing player, and I think another guy that illustrates why the Nets development staff has their work cut out for them and why they have the potential to work with these guys and turn this draft class into a huge win for that Net front office. But after a quick break, we're going to close it out talking about our last takeaway from Summer League and what we think fans potentially have to look forward to this coming season. Closing out today's Locked On Nets episode with CJ Holmes, Nets beat reporter for the New York Daily News. We are giving our top Summer League takeaways. We talked about Egor Demin at the top. We talked about the rest of the Nets draft class and why we think the development staff has their work cut out for them. CJ, what is your last takeaway from the Summer League action and what we saw in Las Vegas?
Yeah, man, it's just the process is processing, right? You don't want to go, as much as wins and losses are inconsequential in Summer League, you don't want to go 1-4, especially after, bringing in 5 rookies, right? That's definitely not what you want. I mean, on paper, people were thinking the Nets were going to win this whole thing. They were incorrect. However, from everything we've heard from Hetzel to the players, to what we're seeing out on the court, it just seems like everyone is on one accord, for better or for worse. They're on one accord. And, obviously the results out in Vegas weren't necessarily what you wanted, but the process seems correct. And I think that's a major win.
My takeaway is that the Nets are not going to be a good basketball team this coming season. And hey, some fans might still be mad about that. I think there's a lot of fans that'll be happy about that after seeing them kind of come out the gate a little hotter than expected this past season. And
are we already on Darren Peterson watch? Like already, man? Like,
sorry, like I don't know what to tell you. We all know the deal here. Like, I don't think there's any Nets fans that are confused about what the deal is this coming season. And I think that they're going to be bad, but I think it'll be easier for the fans with them being bad because you have all of these young guys to watch and you have their development track to monitor. Like, you have 5 guys who are going to be, are hopeful to be long-term pieces with the team, young players. So you can look at their development, but just, I think we'll talk about that and why that can be exciting. But just from the roster standpoint, looking at this, like if you look at them exceeding expectations to start last season, opening the season 9-10 or whatever it was, really putting themselves behind the 8 ball and the lottery odds. I think the biggest guy who led them to that was Dennis Schroeder, who came out looking like Isaiah Thomas for
when the Nets have guard play, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. If you have guard play, and also obviously CJ played a big role in that. Both those guys are gone. DFS is gone. Mm-hmm. But the ball handling, we saw that last year with the Nets, the easiest way to cripple a team at the NBA from at least having some kind of floor and looking competent is to take away the ball handling, the self-creation, any of that, just the structure to that offense. Schroeder was that in the beginning of the season, and CJ brought that in spurts as a secondary guy. You look at this Nets team this year, you look at in terms of having a veteran ball handler who can really be comfortable and do these things, you're trading out Schroeder and you're bringing in Traore, Demin, Saraf. And those are 3 guys traditionally in the NBA, rookie ball handlers, rookie point guards. They struggle a lot because it's a big adjustment. It's a big step up in terms of the ball pressure, the physicality, the length. The windows are smaller. That 3-point shot's a little farther. It's just a completely different game at the NBA level. So I think that that's going to make them a lot worse than they were last year. And then you are trading out. You're trading out CJ for MPJ. Maybe MPJ blows up. I did a whole episode on him with Matt Brooks. He could be. Maybe he's a CJ upgrade, but I doubt we're seeing him play better than CJ did last season, given it was a career year for CJ. Mm-hmm. And then you take DFS out of the equation and you bring in Terrence Mann. I would say people probably think that's a downgrade too. So I would think that they're going to be a lot worse than they were last year. Maybe not a lot worse, but they will be worse, in my opinion. The over-under win total opened at 20.5. Going to do a whole episode on that, but Do you agree with my assessment? Do you think that it's a situation where this might be a little bit lower of a level than what we saw last season from Brooklyn?
I do think that the 2025-26 Nets are going to be fun to watch for a lot of the reasons that you said.
Yeah.
Rookie development, year 2 under Jordy Fernandez. They have the ball handlers to, in theory, to play their brand of basketball at this point. And, as rough as last year got for Nets fans, there were bright moments where you kind of saw the vision that they were going for with this franchise. But yeah, man. I don't expect them to be. I don't expect them to be awful. I don't think they'll be the worst team in the league, but I think this is another season where they missed the playoffs, and I think this is probably by design, right? Because this is another pretty major draft class coming up, and the Nets kind of want to, use that, to continue to bring in talent to the franchise. So they will be bad, but they will be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's part of them being fun to watch is I think you're going to get to see these guys play a lot. Like, you're going to see these rookies play a lot. Part of what made last season so monotonous and so frustrating was the fact that it was like the injury report watching all year. It was like, is CJ playing? Is DFS playing? Later in the season, is D'Angelo Russell playing? Like, are these guys going to be in the lineup? And when they were in the lineup, a lot of Nets fans were getting frustrated because they were like, these guys are helping us win too many games and they need to sit. This year, I think you're going to see these rookies, them trying to get these rookies all the minutes, because that's just going to benefit them.
When Mark said, we're going to put them on the court, I fully expect them to put them on the court.
Yeah, that's just so like, regardless of the win-loss record, and I think that this team is going to have a little bit more trouble winning than last year's squad, but that's organic. Like, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more depressing to have to watch the injury report and be angry that your best or most promising guys are playing, as opposed to this year, the case being these rookie guys are playing, and maybe we're struggling because they're not, they're acclimating to NBA level play, but we get to watch them. And now it's like last year when you were looking from the development standpoint, you're looking at the promising, like, who are the young guys that we could build forward with? Who are the guys that you were watching last year? It was Noah Clowney. Like, you're watching Clowney for sure as like one of those young guys. Dariq Whitehead, but he didn't play till the end of the season. Outside of that, you have some lower level guys, obviously, like Keon, Tyrese. Dayron's a little bit older. I wouldn't put him in like that young bucket, but this year you're going to have a lot of those guys. You have guys who, you hope are going to turn into high level rotation pieces who are younger than 20 years old. So I think that's something that this franchise hasn't seen in a long time. And that's going to make it exciting, even if the basketball and the wins and losses are a little bit below, what obviously are a lot below what you're hoping for. You have guys who can be high-level homegrown prospects. And CJ, you've been covering the Nets for a little bit now, but going back way further, like, this team hasn't had a lottery pick since 2010. So Egor, Derek Favors. Yeah. I mean, you've covered the league for a long time, but like, dude, that's crazy. That's insane to like have a fan base go that long without watching a lottery pick play.
And then the lottery picks you did have, you traded them away and they became stars.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, dude, like, that's just brutal. And Favors, like, bro, Favors played 5 games with the Nets, and then they traded him for D.
Class, right?
It was John Wall. That's won 12 games. Everybody thought they were getting John Wall. They dropped to 3 and they get Favors. But yeah, I mean, Favors played like 35 games, and then they traded him for D. Will. Like, this team, since coming to Brooklyn, has been the quick fix team. Like, it was D. Will, and then Joe Johnson, KG, Paul Pierce, all that went away. They built it up with the spunky young group, and then it was the big three with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. And now they're building it up organically for the first time since Brooklyn. So even if the wins and losses, it goes obviously hard in one direction next season, probably by design, I think it's an exciting time for Nets fans overall. CJ, I appreciate you coming on. Before we close it out, any last thoughts on Summer League? Anything you want to leave fans with as we kind of move forward into the offseason and we start getting closer to training camp?
Yeah, man. Us reporters are going to rest up here for the next couple weeks, and we're back to work in September if you guys want to find me. Well, work never stops, but, once the preseason and everything gets going, Should be a fun year regardless. But if you guys want to find me, I'm on Twitter at Holmescribe and on Instagram at CJHolmes22.
Appreciate you taking the time, man, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
That does it for this episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with CJ, hitting on our top takeaways from Brooklyn Summer League action in Las Vegas. It was really fun to see these guys in the black and white for the first time. But if you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Be sure to like, comment. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. Let me know what you thought about Brooklyn Summer League action, how you thought the rookies fared. I'll try to respond to as many of those as I can. But I will be back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.